The same sky. Thousands of years ago, long before telescopes, satellites, or modern science, ancient civilizations looked up at the night sky and saw something we still see today. The same stars, the same patterns, the same endless darkness filled with light. Knowledge without tools. Ancient cultures tracked the movement of stars with incredible precision. They knew seasonal cycles, planetary movements, celestial alignments, all without modern instruments. No telescopes, no computers, no satellites. And yet, their knowledge was accurate. The pyramids and the stars. The pyramids of Egypt are aligned with astonishing precision. Some researchers believe they are connected to the stars of Orion's belt, not approximately, but with mathematical intention. How did a civilization thousands of years ago achieve such alignment? Was it observation alone, or something more? The global pattern. Egypt was not alone. Across the world, the Maya tracked Venus with extreme accuracy. The Sumerians mapped constellations. Ancient Chinese astronomers recorded star movements. Indigenous cultures created detailed sky maps. Different civilizations, different continents, same sky, same knowledge. The question that emerges: how did all of these cultures, separated by oceans and time, develop such advanced understanding of the stars? Was it coincidence, independent discovery, or shared knowledge? A lost source of knowledge. Some believe this knowledge may have come from a lost civilization, a civilization that existed before recorded history, one that understood the stars deeply and passed that knowledge down, fragmented, distorted, but never completely lost. The stars as a map. To ancient cultures, the stars were not random. They were structured, meaningful, intentional. Some believe the constellations were used as a map, not just of the sky, but of something else. Above and below. Many ancient traditions share a similar idea. As above, so below. The belief that the sky reflects the earth, that patterns in the stars mirror patterns on land. If this is true, then the stars may have been more than distant lights. They may have been a guide. Alignments that should not exist. Ancient sites around the world align with celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, star positions. These alignments required long-term observation or precise knowledge. But how did they achieve such accuracy? The possibility of memory. What if this knowledge was not discovered, but remembered, passed down from a time when humanity understood more than it does now, a time when the connection between Earth and the stars was clearer? The language of the stars. To the ancient world, the stars were not silent. They spoke. Not in words, but in patterns, repeating movements, shifting alignments, predictable cycles that formed a kind of celestial language. A language that could be observed, recorded, and eventually understood. But understanding requires time, generations, consistency. And yet, some of this knowledge appears suddenly in history, as if it did not slowly develop, but arrived already formed. Constellations as stories. The constellations were more than shapes in the sky. They were stories. Orion the hunter, the great bear, the celestial dragon. Different cultures gave them different names, yet often described similar patterns and meanings. This suggests something deeper than imagination alone. Why did so many distant civilizations look at the same stars and see something similar? The sky as a calendar. Long before written calendars, the stars marked time. Ancient people knew when to plant crops, when to harvest, when seasons would change,
all by watching the sky. The rising and setting of specific stars acted as signals. This required not just observation, but precise timing, a level of consistency that had to be passed down accurately across generations. Knowledge without error. What is most striking is not that ancient people studied the stars, but how accurate they were. Some ancient star maps match modern calculations with surprising precision. Positions, cycles, and celestial events were recorded in ways that align closely with what we know today, without advanced tools, without modern science, and yet without major error. The problem of time. To track the stars accurately, you need long-term observation, decades, centuries, even longer. But many ancient civilizations rose and fell within limited timeframes. So how did they gather such long-term data? Did they inherit it? A knowledge passed down. If this knowledge was passed down, then it must have come from somewhere, from someone. A source older than the civilizations we know today. A source that understood the sky deeply enough to create systems that would last for thousands of years. But that source is missing from history. Or perhaps hidden. The stars as a guide. Some theories suggest that ancient people used the stars for navigation, not just across land or sea, but across something much larger. A symbolic map. A guide for understanding the world itself. If the stars were used as a reference system, then they were not just observed. They were relied upon. Patterns repeating on Earth. Across the world there are structures that appear to mirror the sky. Pyramids aligned with constellations, temples positioned according to star paths, cities designed with celestial geometry. It is as if ancient civilizations were not only looking at the stars, but trying to recreate them on Earth. Why recreate the sky? This raises a deeper question. Why would ancient people go to such effort to recreate the sky? Was it symbolic, religious, or functional? If the stars represented something important, then recreating them on Earth may have served a purpose beyond belief. A connection lost. Modern humanity looks at the stars differently. We see distance, we see physics, we see data. But ancient cultures may have seen connection, a relationship between Earth and the cosmos that we no longer fully understand. The possibility of forgotten science. What if ancient star knowledge was not primitive, but advanced in a different way? A form of science based on observation, pattern recognition, and long-term tracking. A system that did not rely on technology, but on understanding. And over time, that understanding may have been lost. A civilization before history. Some theories suggest that before known civilizations, there existed another, one that developed knowledge of the stars far beyond what we attribute to ancient cultures today. If that civilization disappeared, its knowledge would not vanish completely. It would scatter. Fragments would remain. And those fragments would appear in later cultures as mystery. The same knowledge, different places. Across continents, ancient people shared similar astronomical ideas, similar constellations, similar interpretations, similar alignments. This consistency is difficult to explain through isolation alone. It suggests connection or inheritance. Did they learn from the sky or something else? There are only two possibilities. Either ancient civilizations developed this knowledge independently, or they received it. And if they received it, from where? From a lost civilization? From travelers? From something beyond Earth? The Watchers in myth. Many ancient myths speak of beings connected to the stars. Teachers, watchers, gods who came from the sky and shared knowledge with humanity. Modern interpretations often dismiss these as symbolic, but the consistency of these stories across cultures is difficult to ignore. The stars as memory. Perhaps the stars were not just studied, but remembered. A memory of origins, a memory of something humanity once knew, something that connected us to the cosmos in a way that has since been forgotten. The limit of our understanding. Today we have advanced technology. We can observe distant galaxies, measure cosmic radiation, map the universe. And yet, the deeper meaning that ancient people may have seen in the stars feels lost. A question that remains. Why did every ancient culture regardless of location, regardless of time. Look at the stars and understand them in ways that still impress us today. What if they knew more? What if ancient civilizations did not know less than we do, but more? Not in technology, but in connection, in interpretation, in understanding the patterns that link everything together. The final thought. Tonight, when you look up at the stars, you are seeing the same sky that ancient civilizations saw. The same patterns, the same lights, the same mystery. But perhaps they were not just looking. Perhaps they were understanding. But what they understood about it may have been far more advanced than we imagine.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.
The sky that watches back. For most of human history, we believed we were the ones observing the stars. But what if that assumption is reversed? What if the stars were never just distant lights, but points of observation? Fixed positions in the sky that do not merely shine, but watch. Ancient cultures often described the sky as alive, not metaphorically, but literally. A vast presence stretching across the darkness, aware in ways we could not understand. And perhaps they were not entirely wrong. Patterns that should not exist. There are patterns in the stars that feel intentional. Symmetry that appears too precise. Distances that align too perfectly. Repeating formations that resemble structures rather than randomness. Modern science explains these as coincidence, but the human mind struggles with coincidence on such a scale. Because the universe does not feel random when you look at it long enough. It feels designed. A code written in light. What if the stars are not just stars, but information? Cosmic code written across the sky. A message encoded in distances, brightness, and position. Something ancient. Something waiting. Something that has always been there, but requires the right perspective to understand. The forgotten interpreters. If such a code existed, who could read it? Ancient astronomers may not have had technology, but they had time. Generations devoted to observation, to memory, to pattern recognition. Perhaps they were not simply watching the sky, but decoding it. Signals from the past. Imagine a civilization long gone, one that understood the stars as more than objects. A civilization that left behind a message, not in books, not in stone, but in the sky itself. A message that could survive floods, fires, and the collapse of empires. A message that could never be destroyed, because it was written in the stars. Earth as a reflection. If the stars contain patterns, then perhaps Earth reflects them. Ancient sites aligned to constellations may not be coincidence. They may be markers, points in a larger system. Locations chosen not randomly, but deliberately, as if the surface of Earth was mapped to something above it. The grid theory. Some theories suggest that ancient structures form a global grid, a network of energy, alignment, or communication. And when these points are connected, they begin to resemble something familiar. Not a natural pattern, but a constructed one. One that mirrors the sky. A system beyond understanding. If Earth and the stars are connected through such a system, then we are standing inside something far larger than we realize. A structure not made of metal or stone, but of alignment, of positioning, of relationships between objects across vast distances. A system that does not reveal itself easily, because it was never meant to be obvious. The possibility of design. Design does not always appear as something built. Sometimes, design is subtle, hidden in proportions, in distances, in relationships between elements.
The stars may not look artificial, but what if their arrangement is? The observer effect. In modern physics, observation changes reality. But what if observation works both ways? What if the act of looking at the stars connects us to them? Ancient cultures often believed that awareness itself had power, that looking upward was not passive, but active, a form of interaction. The sky as a memory field. Imagine that the stars store information, not in a way we can measure, but in a way we can feel. A record of time, of events, of existence itself. A memory field stretching across the universe. And ancient humans may have been more attuned to it. Knowledge without language. There are forms of knowledge that cannot be written, that cannot be explained, only experienced. Ancient people may have understood the stars not through data, but through perception, through intuition, through a connection we no longer possess. The lost sensory world. Modern humans rely on technology, but ancient humans relied on their senses. Their awareness of the natural world was far more developed. They saw patterns we ignore. They felt connections we do not notice. And when they looked at the stars, they may have perceived something we cannot. The stars as gateways. Some myths describe the stars as portals, not physical doors, but points of transition, places where reality changes, where the boundary between worlds becomes thin. These ideas appear across cultures, separated by distance, yet connected by concept. The question of origin. Where did humanity come from? Science provides one answer, but ancient cultures often gave another. They spoke of origins connected to the stars, not metaphorically, but directly, as if humanity itself was linked to something beyond Earth. A return to the sky. If that connection once existed, then perhaps ancient people were not just studying the stars. They were remembering them, trying to reconnect, trying to understand where they came from, and where they were meant to go. The silence of the modern world. Today the stars feel distant, silent, empty. But that may not be because they are. It may be because we no longer know how to listen. The final question. Why did every ancient culture, no matter how far apart, share this connection to the stars? Why did they all look upward and see something more? What if it was never random? What if none of it was random? Not the stars, not the patterns, not the knowledge, not even us. The last thought. Tonight when you look at the sky, remember this. You are not seeing something new. You are seeing something ancient. Something that has been watched, studied, understood for thousands of years, but perhaps never fully explained. And if every ancient civilization knew something about the stars, then maybe the mystery is not in the sky, but in what humanity has forgotten about it.
The stars that never move. Night after night, year after year, the stars appear fixed. They rise, they set, but their positions relative to one another remain almost unchanged. To ancient observers, this was not just consistency, it was permanence. A sky that did not shift, a pattern that did not break, almost as if it had been locked in place. The idea of a fixed sky. Some ancient cultures believed the stars were embedded in a vast dome, a structure surrounding the Earth. Not infinite space, but something contained, something constructed. A ceiling rather than a void, a boundary rather than an endless expanse. The illusion of distance. Modern science tells us the stars are unimaginably far away, and yet, to the human eye, they feel close, connected, arranged, as if distance itself is not as simple as we think. What if the stars are not where we believe they are? What if their positions are part of something projected or structured differently than we understand? Light that arrives too perfectly. The light from stars travels across immense distances to reach Earth. But why does it arrive in such clarity, such consistency, such recognizable patterns? Across vast time, across vast space, still forming the same constellations, still telling the same stories, still appearing unchanged. The idea of a sky system. Imagine the night sky not as chaos, but as a system, an arrangement of lights positioned with intent, a network, a grid, a design that only reveals itself when viewed as a whole. From the ground, it looks random, but from above, it may look very different. The view from beyond. If one could leave Earth, travel far enough away, and look back at the stars as a complete structure, what would they see? Would the constellations still appear random, or would they form something larger? A shape, a pattern, a message. The Watchers Revisited. Ancient myths often describe beings who came from the stars, not as invaders, but as observers, teachers, guides. They watched humanity, shared knowledge, then disappeared. But what if they never left? What if observation continues from a distance we cannot detect? Signals in silence. Space is often described as silent, but silence does not mean absence. It means we are not tuned to hear. What if the stars are communicating, but not in a way we can perceive? Signals hidden in light, in frequency, in patterns beyond our detection. A conversation happening across the universe without us understanding a single word. The human connection. Why are humans drawn to the stars? Why do we feel something when we look up? A sense of wonder, of curiosity, of recognition, as if something deep within us remembers, even if we cannot explain what. Memory beyond time. What if the connection to the stars is not learned, but inherited? Something encoded within us. A memory that does not belong to our individual lives, but to something much older. Something carried across generations, across civilizations, across time itself. The edge of understanding. There is a point where knowledge ends and mystery begins. The stars sit exactly at that boundary. We can measure them, map them, study them, but we cannot fully explain the feeling they create, the sense that there is more, just beyond understanding. The possibility of intention. If the stars were arranged, if the knowledge was passed down, if ancient civilizations understood something deeper, then we must consider a possibility that none of this is accidental, that there is intention behind the patterns we see, even if we cannot yet understand it. A universe that responds. Some ancient beliefs suggest the universe is not passive, that it responds, that it reacts to awareness, that observation itself is a form of interaction. If this is true, then looking at the stars is not a one-sided act. It is a connection. The final enigma. Why did ancient civilizations dedicated so much of their existence to the stars? Why did they build monuments aligned with them? Why did they create myths centered around them? Why did they treat the sky as something sacred? Perhaps because they knew something we do not, or perhaps because they experienced something we have forgotten. The last question. And so we return to the beginning. Why did every ancient culture know about the stars? Was it observation, inheritance, guidance, or something beyond all of these? The next time you look up at the night sky, remember, you are seeing the same stars that guided ancient civilizations, the same patterns they studied, the same mystery they tried to understand. But unlike them, we may not know what we are looking at, and maybe that is the greatest mystery of all.